Today, we'll uncover 4 of Joshua's most profound battle strategies principles that not only led Israel to victory, but can also transform the way we approach the battles in our own lives. These aren't just stories from the past. They're timeless truths that show us how to navigate life's struggles with courage, purpose, and divine guidance. The strategy of obedience. One of Joshua's most famous victories is the conquest of Jericho, a city with walls so high and fortified that it seemed impenetrable. Yet Joshua didn't rely on traditional military tactics to bring the walls down. Instead, he followed instructions from God that seemed, at first glance, completely illogical. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, everyone straight in." Joshua's response was immediate obedience. He didn't question God's plan or try to adapt it to fit his own understanding. He trusted that God's strategy, no matter how unconventional, would lead to victory. And it did. The walls of Jericho fell, not because of military might, but because Joshua and the people of Israel chose obedience over logic. This principle is just as powerful today. Sometimes God asks us to take steps of faith that don't make sense by human standards. It might be forgiving someone who has hurt us deeply, taking a risk in our career, or stepping into an unknown situation. Obedience often requires humility and trust, but it opens the door for God to work in ways we can't imagine. Joshua's obedience also inspired the people around him. His faith in God's plan gave the Israelites the courage to follow through, even when the plan seemed unusual. This reminds us that our obedience can influence others, encouraging them to trust God as well. Obedience isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. When we trust God's guidance, even when it challenges our understanding, we invite His power into our lives. The walls of Jericho didn't fall because of human effort. They fell because of unwavering obedience to God's command. The same principle holds true for the walls in our own lives. The power of unity. Joshua's leadership was marked by more than just military strategy. It was defined by the unity he cultivated among the people of Israel. Before any battle, Joshua ensured that the Israelites were not just physically prepared, but spiritually united. This unity wasn't accidental. It was rooted in their shared commitment to follow God and support Joshua as their leader. Then they answered Joshua, "Whatever you have commanded us, we will do, and wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we fully obeyed Moses, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your word and does not obey it, whatever you may command them, will be put to death. Only be strong and courageous." This declaration of loyalty was just a pledge to Joshua. It was a collective decision to put God's mission above personal interests. By committing to unity, the Israelites ensured they could act as one body, working together to achieve their goal. In the conquest of Jericho, this unity was critical. The people followed Joshua's commands precisely, marching in silence for 6 days and then shouting together on the 7th day. Their collective obedience demonstrated a deep trust in God's plan and in each other. Without this unity, the victory at Jericho would not have been possible. In our own lives, unity is just as essential. Whether in families, communities, or workplaces, disunity weakens us, while collaboration and shared purpose strengthen us. Unity doesn't mean everyone is the same. It means working together toward a common goal despite differences. For Joshua and the Israelites, unity was built on faith in God's promises and a shared commitment to His mission. In our own battles, we can draw strength from this principle by fostering unity in our relationships, prioritizing shared goals, and supporting one another. Unity doesn't just make us stronger, it aligns us with God's purpose. When we stand together, bound by faith and shared vision, we become unstoppable, just as Joshua and the Israelites were when they marched around Jericho. Faith over fear. Joshua's leadership was consistently characterized by faith, even in the face of overwhelming odds. One of the most dramatic examples of this was during the battle against the Amorites. Joshua, seeing the need for more time to secure victory, made a bold and unprecedented request, a request that would require divine intervention. On the day the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel, Joshua said to the Lord in the presence of Israel, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Aijalon." So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself on its enemies, as it is written in the book of Jashar. This act of faith is extraordinary. Joshua didn't hesitate to ask God for the impossible, believing that the Creator of the universe could alter the natural order to fulfill His promises, and God answered, granting Israel a miraculous victory. Faith over fear is a lesson that resonates deeply in our lives. Like Joshua, we often face battles that seem insurmountable, whether it's a personal challenge, a family struggle, or a professional setback. Fear can paralyze us, but faith gives us the courage to move forward, trusting that God is in control. Joshua's faith also had a ripple effect. His boldness inspired the Israelites to continue fighting, knowing that God was with them. This reminds us that our faith can encourage and uplift those around us, creating a ripple of trust and courage. Practically, living with faith over fear means choosing to focus on God's promises rather than the size of our problems. It means stepping into challenges with the assurance that God's power is greater than any obstacle. Just as Joshua trusted God to stop the sun, we can trust Him to intervene in our lives, even when the odds seem impossible. Faith doesn't eliminate fear, but it gives us the strength to act in spite of it. And when we do, we often find that God meets us in ways that exceed our expectations. The importance of seeking God's counsel. While Joshua's victories were numerous, his leadership wasn't without mistakes. One of the most striking lessons from his story comes from an error that occurred not in battle, but in decision-making. When approached by the Gibeonites, who disguised themselves as travelers seeking peace, Joshua and the Israelites failed to consult God before making a covenant with them. The Israelites sampled their provisions, but did not inquire of the Lord. Then Joshua made a treaty of peace with them to let them live, and the leaders of the assembly ratified it by oath. This seemingly small oversight had long-term consequences. By trusting their own judgment rather than seeking God's guidance, Joshua and the Israelites unknowingly allowed a deceptive enemy to become entrenched in their community. Although they honored the treaty, the decision created complications for Israel in the future. This story underscores a vital principle. No matter how experienced, wise, or capable we may feel, we are always in need of God's guidance. relying solely on our understanding, can lead to decisions that seem right in the moment but have unforeseen consequences. In our own lives, seeking God's counsel means bringing every decision, big or small, to Him in prayer. It's about pausing to ask for His wisdom and trusting that He will provide clarity through His Word, His Spirit, and the counsel of godly people. This practice not only helps us avoid pitfalls, but also aligns our choices with His perfect will. Joshua's mistake reminds us of the importance of humility in leadership and decision-making. Even in the midst of success, we must remain dependent on God, recognizing that His wisdom far surpasses our own. When we make seeking God's counsel a habit, we not only protect ourselves from deception, but also open the door to His blessings and guidance. This lesson from Joshua's story is a powerful reminder to never underestimate the value of prayerful discernment. Joshua's battle strategies weren't rooted in human logic or conventional tactics, they were anchored in divine wisdom. Through obedience, unity, faith, and seeking God's counsel, Joshua led Israel to victories that seemed impossible by earthly standards. These principles weren't just for ancient battles. They hold timeless relevance for the challenges we face today. From the fall of Jericho to the miracle of the sun standing still, Joshua's story reminds us that true success comes not from our strength, but from our trust in God. When we align our actions with His will, seek His guidance, and step forward in faith, we position ourselves to experience His power in our lives. These strategies invite us to think differently about the battles we face. They challenge us to respond not with fear or self-reliance, but with a reliance on God's wisdom and promises. Whether you're navigating personal struggles, professional challenges, or spiritual growth, the lessons from Joshua's life offer a roadmap to victory. We'll continue exploring timeless lessons from the Bible, uncovering truths that inspire us to live with faith, purpose, and connection. Thank you for joining us on this journey.